Every time he thinks he's out, they pull him back in. So why is the man known to the criminal underworld as Baba Yaga so bad at staying retired? Here's what we know so far about the backstory of film's greatest assassin, John Wick. It isn't until the third installment of the John Wick franchise that we learn anything about the early life and upbringing of everyone's favorite dog-loving hitman. In many ways, even the small bits of information we do get are coded with symbolism meant to lead the audience to draw their own conclusions. Here's what we know. Born Jardani Jovanovic in Belarus, he was orphaned as a child and adopted by the Ruska Roma, which is the name of both an ethnic group and a criminal syndicate. He then began training as an assassin under a woman known as the Director in the guise of studying at a performing arts institute in New York City. We're not sure when he changed his name, but Jardani is the equivalent name to John in the Romani language. We also don't know when exactly John received all of his tattoos, but as we get a short tour of the Director's Institute, we see that the older students are already heavily tattooed with Catholic imagery similar to John's, possibly indicating they've gone through a similar initiation into the assassin underworld. We also see the students in the process of various kinds of training, from dancing to wrestling and so much more. Given that our boy John is an expert marksman and driver, a skilled martial artist across a number of different styles, experienced in hand-to-hand combat with virtually every weapon, and resilient enough to walk off a back alley surgery with no anesthetic, they've probably got more going on there too. The most obvious and definitive thing we know about John's past is what we're directly told in the first movie.
John is a man of focus, commitment, sheer will.
Before settling down with his wife, Wick was an incredibly proficient and prolific assassin who quickly earned the nickname of Baba Yaga for being the hitman so lethal that he terrified the other hitmen. After leaving the Ruska Roma, John joined the Tarasov mob as one of the main enforcers for its leader, Vigo Tarasov. During this time, John developed different relationships with people at various levels of the High Table, the ruling body of this criminal underworld, with delegates from each of the 12 families in charge of, it seems, all crime everywhere. John developed a friendly relationship with a few allies, including the staff of the assassin-friendly Continental Hotel, particularly its stickler for the rules manager Winston. Unfortunately, he also made a collection of frenemies along the way among his rival killers, as is to be expected in the assassin game. At some point during the assassin years, John crossed paths with Sofia, another dog lover and assassin who would go on to manage the Casablanca branch of the Continental. John helps to get Sofia's daughter to safety from the mob, and in return, he receives a blood oath marker from her. These markers are made of elaborate gold designs and open like a locket. Inside, they have room for 2 thumbprints, the first establishing the oath, and the second when the oath has been fulfilled by returning any favor they ask. No matter what the relationship might be between the two parties, they are absolutely non-negotiable. If someone has your marker, you owe them, period.
This is your blood. Your bond. When you needed help, I was there.
At the heart of this action franchise is an operatic love story that ends in tragedy. John falls in love with a woman named Helen and knows he has no choice but to get out of the assassin game. When he approaches Vigo Tarasov about retiring, the crime lord seizes the moment to take full advantage of John's new vulnerability.
I gave him an impossible task, a job no one could have pulled off.
Vigo tasks John with taking out all of his rival leaders in a single night, and against all odds, he does. While John earned his freedom through his staggering body count, he wasn't able to pull it off alone. He gives his blood oath marker to the son of the head of the Rome syndicate, Santino D'Antonio, for tactical assistance. This will prove to be one of the biggest mistakes of John Wick's life. The blood marker ends up being the price of 5 years with his beloved Helen before she passes away from cancer, shattering him in a way that he'd never been broken before. She was his anchor in the real world outside of the assassin game. As a final gift, Helen leaves John a puppy named Daisy, someone new for him to take care of and help him remember his humanity and all the love he has in his heart. John isn't out of the game long, but those 5 years were still long enough for the next generation of mobsters to forget who he was and what he's capable of. Apparently, even the bad guys don't tell their kids bedtime stories about a guy who once took out 3 men with a pencil. As John is filling up at a gas station near his home, a young hoodlum asks to buy John's muscle car from him, which John refuses. This happens to be Viggo Tarasov's son, Yosef, who decides to get a crew together, storm John's house, assault him, and steal his car. They also kill John's puppy, which will prove to be the biggest mistake of anyone's life ever. Badly injured and emotionally devastated once more, John's grief turns to pure, unbridled rage. While Viggo tries to negotiate a solution that doesn't end with a very crowded Tarasov mausoleum, John digs up the remnants of his former career, a trove of markers, gold coins, and weapons cemented underneath his garage. With Yosef in his sights, John Wick makes a return to his old life with one thing on his mind: revenge.
People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
In the meantime, Viggo sends his own assassins after John, but, well, the movie isn't called Miss Perkins, is it? After an enormous death toll that takes out Viggo, Yosef, Miss Perkins, and dozens more, John adopts a pit bull who is set to be put down the next day and goes home. Knowing quite well that John Wick was battered after his war with the Tarasovs, an opportunistic Santino D'Antonio pulls John back into the underworld even further by cashing in his own marker. Santino's request? Take out his sister Gianna, who's been selected to represent their family at the high table so he can assume her throne. John can't refuse the marker, so he sadly, reluctantly flies to Rome, where he uses gold coins to get a stylish but tactical wardrobe as well as weapons. When he arrives at Gianna's ascendance party, a gorgeous affair set in Roman ruins, she knows what her brother has done and chooses to end things herself to maintain what little agency she has left. The job is now done, but Santino can't leave well enough alone. He lies and puts a hit of $7 million out on John Wick for assassinating his sister that leads to another huge showdown with a dozen assassins. Once again, we see John emerging as the victor, but not without cost. Back in New York, John is forced to visit the Bowery King, a low-level player in the Hitman game, but he has access to his own resources. He gives John 7 bullets, one for each million of the bounty.
Oh, and remember, you owe me. You don't want me owing you.
Santino flees to the Continental because the rules that govern the assassins forbid doing business on the hotel's grounds. If you've been along for the ride so far, it will not surprise you that this particular rule does not stop John Wick from getting revenge. Pulling off a hit on Continental grounds results in immediate excommunication from the entire underworld network that was once available to John Wick. Because he knows that Santino set John up, Winston gives him an hour to escape before putting in the Excommunicado order, but he can't stop the other assassins.
Tell them all. Whoever comes, whoever it is, I'll kill them. I'll kill them all.
Badly injured and running out of time, John goes to the New York Public Library where he has stashed away a photograph of his wife Helen, as well as a rosary and more markers inside a hollowed-out book of Russian folktales. While there, a giant assassin tries to kill him before the hour-long grace period is up, but fails when John takes him down with a library book. That might be even more impressive than using a pencil. John manages to make it to a friendly face in the form of a doctor, who begins tending his wounds but isn't able to finish before the hour is up, leaving John to finish stitching himself. When the hour is up, more bounty hunters arrive to attack John in a museum of ancient weapons, which is arguably the worst place outside of a pet store to fight John Wick. Sure enough, our boy John defeats everyone and stumbles his way back to where he started in New York as a child, the Director's Performing Arts Institute. The director decides to help him, securing his passage to Casablanca, where he will try to connect with the only person above the high table who can save his life, the Elder. In the process, the director brands over John's back tattoo. He has cashed his ticket. The Institute and Ruska Roma are no longer his allies. As John Wick travels by boat to Morocco, a new emissary of the high table enters the mix. The adjudicator arrives in Manhattan to mete out the consequences of John's actions since Santino called in John's marker.
There are rules. They are the only things that separate us.
From the animals.
Yes.
Every person who helped John receives severe punishments, while Winston goes into hiding to avoid the adjudicator's sentencing. In Casablanca, John meets with Sophia, the manager of Morocco's Continental Hotel, who doesn't look happy to see him or his marker. To her dismay, however, she made the blood oath to John when he helped Sophia get her daughter into hiding years before. And as we saw with Santino, there's no refusing when that favor gets called in. Sophia and her 2 German shepherds finally agree to help, which involves going to Sophia's old boss, Barada, the man in charge of minting the mysterious coins used in the assassin world. Barada tells them how to find the Elder, then demands Sophia give him one of her beloved dogs in exchange for the information. She refuses, and Barada shoots the dog, which is less than advisable when dealing with John and his friends. Fortunately, this pup has a bulletproof vest.
You shot my dog.
I get it.
Sophia and John fight dozens of Barada's henchmen before defeating them all, with the dogs getting in on the action to get their own revenge as well. Following Barada's instructions, John wanders the desert until he's found by the Elder and agrees to be back in service to the High Table for the rest of his days, no exceptions. To prove his fealty, he cuts off his ring finger, with his wedding ring on it, and offers it as a tribute to the Elder. John's first task for the High Table is to return to Manhattan and kill Winston, who the members of the table feel has gotten too high on his own power. In the meantime, the $14 million bounty is still on John's head, and he has to battle more minions in order to get to Winston, including the acolytes of Ninja Trainer Zero, played by former Iron Chef America chairman Mark Dacascos.
Spinach!
John can't bring himself to kill his longtime ally, though, and defies the High Table's order once again. The adjudicator deconsecrates the Continental, meaning it's open season on John and Winston, who take on an army of assassins sent by the High Table to claim their bounties, including some of John's biggest fans.
That was a pretty good fight, huh?
Yeah.
After the massive battle that follows, Winston and the adjudicator come to an understanding. Winston decides to sell out his old friend and agrees to kill John himself to get the hotel reconsecrated and maintain his position as manager. Winston shoots John several times point blank, and John falls from the roof to what should have been his death. But the Bowery King has his own power and his own score to settle with the High Table. His minion, the TikTok Man, rescues John and brings him down to the Bowery to plan another round of revenge. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Looper videos about your favorite movies are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.